Hello dear student, welcome on this video lecture. In this video lecture we will be practicing questions related to vectors, and in these questions some of the questions may be involving the formulas that you are going to learn in detail later on. So I'm going to tell you the formulas wherever they are going to be needed, and our main focus will be on understanding how the vectors are being used in those formulas, right? And the derivation and other aspect of the formula will be learned later on in the respective chapters. So let's begin with. So let's take this example or question first. Now this question says how many minimum number of coplanar vectors having different magnitude can be added to give zero resultant. Now we know if we take this vector A and if we take another vector which are equal in magnitude but they are opposite in direction, so their resultant is going to be 0. So in case we are having two vectors which are having equal and opposite directions but having equal magnitude, then their resultant will be 0, because we know for this case the resultant is going to be equal to magnitude of a magnitude minus b magnitude. So if a and b are equal, then only this will be 0, otherwise it will be non-zero. So two vectors will give us 0 resultant only if their magnitudes are identical, right? So it says we need to find such vector numbers which have a different magnitude. So different magnitudes vector, two vectors cannot deliver a 0 resultant. For that matter, we need to have at least three vectors. So if we have this vector A and there is another vector B, another vector C, then we have talked about this sum of vector A and B and C will become equal to 0. So if they are able to make a triangle, whatever the triangle they are going to make, this is going to be lying in a single plane. That's called they are coplanar. So we need to have at least three vectors which have a different magnitude in order to find the 0 resultant. So 3 will become our response or correct answer. Now if the coplanar word is not used or non-coplanar is also allowed, then in case of non-coplanar we need to have at least 4 vectors, because these 3 vectors are coplanar, and if we draw vector C outwards, then we need to join that head of this C with the tail of A, so we require one more vector, right? So coplanar we require 3 vectors at least to make their sum 0 if the magnitudes are different. And if the magnitudes are identical, then we can say two vectors will be adding up to 0 resultant. Making sense? Now let's read the second problem which is written over here. It says 5 forces of equal magnitude 10 Newton each are acting on a point and they are in the same plane, that means they are coplanar. If the angle between them is equal, the resultant force of all these forces will be, so we need to find the resultant. Now we can carry forward the description that we talked about for the first question. Now let's say we have two forces. So one force is in this direction F and the same force is in this direction. Since they are having equal magnitude but they are in opposite direction, hence the resultant will be 0. So you'll find in this case the resultant is going to be 1 minus 2, which is going to be equal to 0. So two vectors, when they act equal and when they are equal and they are opposite in direction, their resultant is 0. Making sense? Now if we take the three vectors, so we can say three vectors are going to, if we arrange three vectors like this and they are having equal magnitude, so this is F, this is F and this is F. Now if this angle is 1/3 of the total is 360, so it's going to be 120, this is also 120, this is also 120. That means they are making same equal angle with each other, or the two side by angle vectors. So this sum is also going to be 0. How we can make this as a 0? You can rearrange them. That's the first vector and left this vector and arrange like this, so that becomes the second vector. Pick the last one and arrange, you will find that they are going to be forming an equilateral triangle. So this can be transformed into this, and we know when the vectors are arranged in a cyclic order and making a closed loop, then the resultant come out to be 0. Now similarly, if we have 4 vectors and they are having the same angle between two consecutive vectors, and having the same magnitude, so they will be arranged like this. So this is F, this is F, this is F, and the angle is going to be 360 divided by 4 because they are divided in equal angles, so they are going to be 90, 90, 90. You will find this is also going to be sum up to 0 because this F will get cancelled out, this F, then this F will get cancelled out, so resultant will be 0. Or we can claim like this: one F is in this direction, another F is in this direction, another F is in this direction, another F is in this direction. So they are making a cyclic closed loop, and hence the resultant will become 0. Now we can extend this trend to any number of vectors. So if we are having n number of forces which all have the same magnitude, and the angle between the vectors are equal, then we will find their resultant will always be 0. Just case of in two forces we had equal angle 180, 180. In case of 3 we had angle 120, 120, 120 each, and in case of 4 we had a this 90, 90, 90. So if there is n number, then you will find 360 divided by n will be angle between them. And if there is n number of force, they have equal magnitude and equal angle, then the resultant will always be 0. Why? Because we can always create a cyclic loop which is closed, and hence the resultant will be 0. So that's a general point we can remember. Here we have been given a 5 forces, and they have the same magnitude and they have the same angle, and moreover they lie in the same plane. So if the angle is same, equal angle, and they have equal magnitude and lie in the plane, then we can claim the resultant is always 0. Making sense? This is an important point, have been asked in the examination, so you need to make a note of it as well. Let's move ahead. So here is the next problem. The question is over here. You can read this question. In all the questions, what you can also do, you can pause your video, solve, then see the solution. Anyway, let me read it for you. It says forces of 1 and 2 unit are acting along x equal to 0, y equal to 0 respectively. The equation of the resultant line is. Now we are using forces. Forces are vector quantity. That means we are basically using vectors. So let's say this is our x-axis in the coordinate system. This is y-axis. And 1 Newton force or 1 unit force is acting in the direction of x equal to 0. Now this is x-axis. Now this is coordinate 0, origin. So if we take any point here, you'll find x coordinate will be 0. Here x coordinate will be 0. That means x equal to 0 means y-axis. So whenever we say x equal to 0, that means y-axis. When we say y equal to 0, that means x-axis in 2-dimensional. Okay. So along the x equal to 0, that means y-axis, in the direction of y-axis 1 Newton force is acting. So we will say there is a vector of 1 Newton in this direction. So this is 1 Newton vector. We can draw some sort of this. So this vector is of 1 Newton, and this is in the y direction 1. And moreover, it says y equal to 0, which is x-axis, and in that direction it is 2 unit. So another vector is acting in this direction, which is of 2 unit. Now these are the two vectors, and we need to find the direction of the perpendicular, or we need to find the direction of the resultant. Now we know if the two vectors are acting like this, they are perpendicular to each other, so resultant will be somewhere like this. So that's the resultant R. Now we know as per the rules that we have learned, we can always find this angle, the angle made by the resultant with the one of the vector in case of 90 degree. So this angle, which generally we call as alpha, let me call as alpha. So we can write this tan alpha is equal to, as per the formula that you have learned in case of addition of vectors, this equal to the component which is far divided by this component, that means y over x. So this is going to be 1 by 2, that is tan alpha. So that means the resultant lies such that it makes alpha angle from the x-axis, and this tan alpha is equal to 1 by 2. Now again here some mathematics is going to be involved. We need to find the equation of this line. Now equation of any line which passes through the origin and makes certain angle is written as y is equal to mx. So y equal to mx is the equation of straight line passing through origin and having slope m. M is known as slope. So where this m is equal to tan alpha, where alpha is the angle from the x-axis, and this entire thing is known as a slope. So y equal to mx, m is equal to tan alpha we have already calculated. So equation of straight line, so this is indicating equation of straight line, equation of straight line, and this equation is in the direction of resultant vector. That's what it is asking, equation of resultant line. So this is the resultant line we are looking for. So our answer will become y is equal to tan alpha, m value is going to be tan alpha, which is half, so it's going to be 1 by 2 into x, which can be rewritten as twice y is equal to x, which we can further rewrite as a twice y minus x equal to 0. So that becomes the equation of the resultant line. Then we can check whether there's an option like this. So you will match with this, 1 is not going to match, 3 is not going to match, 4 is not going to match, but the second will be matching. So second becomes our answer. Okay. Now let's read the next question and solve this question. You can read it and solve by your own first. It says addition of which of the following will not be equal to 0. So these are the vectors that have been given to us, and we are being asked the sum of them will not be 0, that we need to decide. Now these are the magnitudes that have been given to us, and direction we can choose any of them. So for this we can use the triangular inequalities that we have learned in one of the video lecture. So let me quickly recall what it is. Let's say we have a vector A over here and a vector B somewhere there. Then we know this is the resultant vector R. Now this is the magnitude of resultant, this is magnitude of A vector, this is magnitude of B vector. So you can see this is the triangular law of vector addition. That means there is a formation of a triangle. Now in this triangle we can treat that A is one side, B is another side, R is another side. And we know this, the magnitude of this R lies between these numbers. That means difference of the magnitude of this A and B, and it is always less than or equal to A plus B. So that's a triangular inequality that we have talked about. So what the meaning it is, it has the meaning that you will be able to find this R which will be less than the sum of the A plus B, or magnitudes of A and B, and it R has to be greater than or equal to difference of A and B magnitudes. This trying to say that you will be getting a triangle formation only if the sum of two sides is greater than the third side. So if you interpret this part, that means second half part, this part, so it tries to say the sum of two sides is always greater than or equal to the third side. And this must be true in order to become this as a resultant. Now if it is a resultant, then you'll find their sum can be treated as a 0. Or you can say you just change the direction of R. If it is bringing in this direction, then you'll find this will become a vector sum as a 0. Make sense or not? So that means there must be a triangle formation by these four options. So in the option in which the triangle formation will take place, their sum may be 0, or their sum will be 0, otherwise it will not be 0. Making sense or not? Now if you look at the first thing, now if we sum the two sides, these two, so this plus this is greater than this, right? So the sum of the two side is coming greater than the third side. You can make the sum of any two, it must be greater than the third. So that means it can make a triangle, hence their sum can be 0. Look at the second option, 10 plus 10, which is equal to 20. That means sum of these two sides is equal to the third side, and if you add them, then you'll find the sum of these two is greater than this. That means it is obliging or following the triangular inequality. That means they can form a triangle, or we can say their sum can be 0. That means you draw a 10 in this direction, 10 in this direction, 20 in this direction, then you'll find the sum will be 0. So this can also deliver sum to be 0. Similarly, in the third, 10 plus 20 is going to be 30. So sum of these two smallest side is equal to the third one, so they can also sum up to 0. However, if you look at the fourth one, in this fourth one you'll find sum of these two sides, which is 10 plus 20 is going to be 30. It's going to be less than 40. So if the sum of the two side is coming less than the third side, that means they can never make a triangle, or that means they cannot sum up to 0. So we will say this will become our answer, because this will not be forming a triangle, hence their vector sum can never be 0. Whereas the vector sum of first, second and third can be 0. So fourth becomes our answer. Let's go for the next question. So let's read this question first. And it says following forces start acting on a particle at rest at the origin of the coordinate system simultaneously. F1, F2, F3, F4, they start acting on a particle, then the particle will move. In which direction it's going to move, or in which plane it's going to move, we need to find out. Now we know this thing by basic our knowledge, or we will be reading it, studying it further in detail. Let's say a particle is placed over here at the origin, and if it is placed, that means it's not moving, right? And if this will be moving in the direction in which the total force acts, so that means it, let's say the net force acts in this direction. So if this is the direction of the net force, then we will say the particle will be moving in the direction of net force. Making sense? And how to get the net force? Net force is the vector sum of all the forces. So what we are going to do over here, we are going to find the net force, which is going to be sum of all the forces. So it's going to be vector sum of all the four forces that have been given to us. Now what we can do, we can sum them up. We have learned this addition of vectors. So we can add any number of vectors if they are given in I cap, j cap, k cap form. Now if you do this summation, then what we are going to do, we are going to collect I terms together, j term together, k term together, as per the rule that we have talked about. So it's going to be -4 and the -3, they will make it as a -7, and this is 5 plus 2, that's going to be +7. So you'll find first term is going to be 7 minus 7. Can we say this I coefficient is going to be 0? This is 7. So 7 minus 7 I cap. Now let's talk about the j terms. This is -5. This is -3. So -5 minus 3 is -8. And this is 8 plus 4, that is 12. So we are going to get as a 12 minus 8 in j cap. Similarly, we can find for the k cap. So this is going to be 5 plus 6, that's 11. 7 and 2 negative, that's a -9. So 11 minus 9 k cap. Point is, we are simply trying to find what it is going to come. So first term becomes 0, is going to be equal to 4 j cap, and we will find it as a 2 k cap. So from here we can see the force that acts on the particle is in j cap as well as k cap. It is not in I cap. That means particle will not move in the direction of x, and it will be moving in the direction of y as well as the direction of z, because this is a y coordinate, this is a z coordinate. So we'll find it's going to move in the direction of y and z together. So that means it is going to move in the plane which is yz plane. So our answer will become that the particle will be moving in yz plane. So we can choose our right answer. Making sense? So this is how we can find where the particle is going to move. Now let's see the next question on this page. It says, what is the angle between P plus Q and P cross Q? We have talked about the addition and cross product. So we know, like if there's a P vector, so let's say this is a P vector, and let's say there is a Q vector, so this is a Q vector. So P and Q, they are in a plane. So we will find this is going to be the resultant vector. If I draw by a different color, so let's say this is the resultant vector. So that's going to be P plus Q vector. So one vector that we need to consider is P plus Q. We can think of this P plus Q vector is in the plane of P vector and Q vector, because this is a triangle and triangle formation takes place in a plane. That means P plus Q vector will be lying in the plane of P vector and Q vector. So this is the conclusion that we can understand now onward. For now onwards, P plus Q vector is, or this lies in the plane of P vector and Q vector. So that means we can claim P vector and Q vector and P plus Q vector, they are always a coplanar vectors. Making sense? Now, as we know, this P cross Q vector, this is perpendicular to the plane of P vector as well as Q vector. So this is in perpendicular to P vector as well as Q vector. That means from here it's clear that this direction is perpendicular to the plane in which the this figure has been drawn, and P plus Q vector is in the same plane, then the angle is clear. Moreover, we can decide this direction of P cross Q as per the figure shown over here. You will place your right hand side's fingers in this direction and curl. So if you are curling in this way, then you'll find the thumb will be outward direction. So we can say P cross Q in this particular picture will be in the outward direction. So that means perpendicular to the board and outward, whereas P plus Q is in the board. So this is in the board, this is perpendicular, that means the angle between this vector and P plus Q vector is 90 degree. So this is option 0, this is 90, this is 45, this is 180, so 90 degree will become our answer. Making sense? If it is, we can move towards next problem. So here is the next problem. It says the x component of resultant of several vectors. So we are considering several number of vectors and we are focusing on x component. And there are 4 statements given to us, A, B, C, and this is to be D. So A, B, C, D, 4 options are given to us. We need to find the correct option. Okay, so let's talk about how to add the several vectors. Resultant means addition and several vectors means more than 2, or that can be any number of them, right? So we have understood one way of adding several number of vectors. So if we have been given this vector in this direction, any vector, let's say this is f1, so what we can do, we can make a component in x direction, we can make a component in y direction. We can call it as a f1x, that means x component of f1, and we can call it as f1y. Similarly, if we have another vector f2, we can, in a very similar manner, we can make a component in this direction and in this direction. We can claim this component to be f2x, that means x component of f2, and this is going to be y component of f2, that means f2y. Similarly, we can have n number of vectors and we can make the component for all of them. Now then, after when we sum them up, then we'll find it's going to be a resultant force in this direction that will be indicating all the x components together. So it's going to be fx, that means resultant's x component, and collecting the y components together, we can claim this is going to be the fy, that means total y component. And then the resultant of all these vectors will be given by this. So this will be the resultant of all the vectors. So here this f is indicating the resultant of all the vectors f1, f2, f3, let's say n number of terms, and this fx is indicating the resultant of all the this is the x component of the resultant of all the vectors. This is y component of the resultant of all the vectors, and these are the individual x component, individual y components. Now in this reference, let's talk about what it is asking for. It is asking for x component of the resultant. That means basically it is talking about this force fx. Making sense? And for this we need to answer this A option. It says is equal to the sum of x component of the vectors. So what this component is basically, can we say here fx is going to be indicating fx f1x, that means sum of first plus f2x plus f3x and so on. So this x component of resultant is basically sum of x component of all the individual vectors. That's what it says. That means A is a correct choice, and it's the statement given in this A is correct. Making sense? B says this number fx may be smaller than the sum of magnitudes of the vectors. So vectors f1, f2, f3, if we sum the magnitudes of these vectors, we need to claim whether this is going to be, or whether this may be smaller. So we can claim that as well. So in B option, it is comparing to the sum of magnitudes of vectors, sum of magnitudes of vectors, not the sum of the vectors. That means this fx has to be compared with this f1 plus f2 plus f3 plus f4 and so on. So that means this number, first number, has to be compared with this number. For an instance, let's talk about that this is indicating f dash. Now this, since this is not the vector sum, this is the simply sum of the magnitudes we are talking about, and we need to compare this fx and f dash, which one is larger. So B option says rather B, C, D, they are all dependent on this comparison, sum of the magnitude of vectors. So that means this comparison is very important. So now this f1 is a full magnitude, this is a magnitude, this is a magnitude, and they are the component. We know for any vector, the component is always less than or equal to the vector. This component can never be more than the vector itself. Why? Because of the reason we know if this angle is theta, so this component will be written as f1 cos theta, and this component will become f1 sin theta. We know this cos theta and sin theta, they are the number less than 1. So that means f1 has to be multiplied by a number which is less than 1. That means this number will be less than f1. So from here we can remember the point that the component of a vector is always less than or equal to the vector itself. That means the component of a vector cannot be more than the vector itself. It can be equal. When it can be equal, when this theta becomes 0, the entire f1 will be in this direction. So y component will become 0, but x component will be equal to f1. So a component can be less than or equal to the force itself, but it can never be more than that. So that means f1x will be less than f1, f2x will be less than f2, similarly other components. So that means we are adding these numbers which are smaller than this. At max they can be equal. So that means this sum is going to be less than this sum, or at max equal. So if we combine those 2 points together, then we can say the value of fx will be either less than or equal to f dash. That means the value of fx can never be more than the f dash. That's the point. So if you have understood this point, then we can choose the options. B says this x component of this resultant of several vector may be smaller than the sum of the magnitudes of the vectors. That's what it is. It may be smaller. Yes, fx may be smaller than the sum of the magnitudes of the vector. So B is also correct. C says this may be greater than the sum of the magnitudes of vector. No, we will say the sum of x components of the vectors will never be greater than the sum of the magnitudes of individual vectors. So this cannot be the case. Hence C is not the correct. D says this may be equal. Says may is asking, and equal, yes, there is a possibility. That means all the vectors are, if they are in the direction of x, then all will make the x component, and their sum will going to be equal to the sum of the magnitude of individual vectors. So that means D is also a possibility. Hence we can choose the correct option now. A has to be correct, B has to be correct, D has to be correct, but C should not be the case. So C is there, C is there, C is there, there is no C. Hence third is the correct answer. Making sense? If you have any doubt and dilemma, you just re-watch this explanation, you will be getting it. And jot down the important point that I spoke during this explanation. Well, let's see the next problem. It says at a certain instant, the x and y coordinates of a particle's position are this and this, where x and y are in meters and t is in second. That means SI unit is being followed. Then the velocity at that instant is given by. So we need to find velocity. This is purely physics question, and which is using the velocity, position, and all that. But here some mathematics is involved. Apart from the vector, you will find here calculus is also involved. Calculus you will be learning in the upcoming part of this mathematics for physics. So some new points will be coming here. I will be explaining them in short, and in detail you will be learning in the upcoming videos. Okay, so first of all is a position vector. So we need to create a position vector. We know the position vector can be written as R. R is a position vector, and if the points has a coordinate x and y, then we know the position vector is given as xi cap plus yj cap. You remember, if any point has x comma y coordinates, then the position vector of that particular location is given as op vector. If p is the point, then op can be written as r vector. So r vector is xi cap plus yj cap. Now we can put the value of x, which is here 2t plus 4t square. So this is a function of time, and we will write it as I cap plus, in place of y we can write 5t and j cap. So that becomes the position vector. Now in physics we will be learning later on the definition of velocity. So velocity is defined as, velocity is a vector, v vector is defined as rate of change of position vector divided by time, or with respect to time. So dr by dt is known as velocity. Now this dr by dt is differentiation of r with respect to time, that we will be learning in the second part of the math needed for physics. Now what the d does, if we are doing d by dt, there is a formula you can remember. If it is t raised to power n, then this makes this particular expression on which we are applying this d by dt. D by dt is called differentiation with respect to time. And if it is t raised to power n, then it converts it into n into t raised to power n minus 1. So that's one of the most important formula for differentiation, and that we need to learn. So here we will be using this formula. What it is, how it functions, we will be learning it in the upcoming lectures. So here I am just explaining it because, and our focus is on this vector part. Now velocity, so we will be writing the velocity is going to be dr by dt, dr vector divided by dt. Now we are writing this d upon dt on r, so we can place the value of r. D upon dt of r is given as this number, which is 2t plus 4t square I cap, so that's the first term, plus 5t j cap. So this is how we need to write. Now this d upon dt, this is called differentiation. Now this differentiation has so many properties you will be learning later on, but here the property that is needed is distribution. So if there is a bracket, it can be taken inside and can be applied on each and every individual terms. So this v will become equal to, we can take this bracket and we are bringing this d upon dt inside. So when it goes inside, it applies on the two constants are taken outside, so it becomes d upon dt of t. Then next term will be coming as 4, you can take 4 outside, so constants are allowed to take outside, d upon dt t raised to power 2. So this entire stuff goes with I cap, plus this 5 can be taken outside, d upon dt, this will be applied on t, and then j cap. Now use this formula that is given over here, n can take any value, so whatever the n is, based on that we can find it out. Let's say there we are using d upon dt on t, so t is basically t raised to power 1, so we will writing the power in front and we will be making this power subtracted by 1, so it's going to be 1 into t raised to power 0. T raised to power 0 is a 1, so that means answer is 1. So whenever we get dt upon dt, so answer comes out to be 1. So this will be equal to, within the bracket and a small bracket is going to be 2, and this d upon dt on t is going to be 1, so 2 into 1 plus 4. Applying the same formula on t square, you will find is going to be 2t. So this with this is going to be making I cap. Similarly, this 5 and this become dt by dt as 1, so there's 5 j cap, which basically gets converted into, if you want to write it as a 2 plus, we can write it as 2 plus 8t I cap plus 5 j cap. We can check if there is any option of such type is available. Then if you check, then you will find your answer, or you can simplify like this. You can take this 2 outside, then you will find 1 plus 4t I cap plus 5 j cap. in meter per second because SI unit is being used. So meter per second, this will become our appropriate answer. So if you look at the first option, it's not matching properly. Second option is matching properly. Neither third nor fourth. Right. So in this particular example, what we have learned that the velocity is dr by dt, rate of change of position with respect to time. This we will be learning in kinematics chapter. We will be defining how the velocity is defined and how we are using it. Now then, an important point that is used over here is differentiation and this formula. If you have understood, that's great. If you have any problem, then you just wait for the upcoming lectures. You will be learning the differentiation and velocity. Now, then after you might get a question in which in place of this velocity, acceleration is being asked. So acceleration we defined as rate of change of velocity with respect to time. That means whatever we have done, we need to simply repeat the same thing back. That means in place of v, we can write this stuff that we have calculated. And again, we can operate this differentiation d upon dt following this rule of differentiation. So it can be further differentiated. Now the differentiation of a constant, if this become a constant, it becomes 0. So that can be solved over here. Right. So if I solve for this in short over here, because you might be asked this kind of question, so you need to place the value of v within this. So it becomes d upon dt of two terms. One is I cap, which is this. So it's going to be 2 plus 8 t I cap, 2 plus 8 t I cap, and plus 5 j cap. When this goes inside, differentiation goes inside. So first it will be applied on 2. 2 is a constant. So differentiation of constant number is 0 because it talks about rate of change and there is no change in a constant. Hence it's 0. So 2 will be 0 when it is isolated. Now when we apply this on 8t, 8 is a constant that you can take out, and the differentiation of t we have talked about, this comes out to be 1. So 8 into 1. And this will be associated with I cap. Then we differentiate this 5 j cap. 5 is a constant, j cap is a constant direction, so that will become 0. 0 j cap. So this will become our answer for acceleration. This is how acceleration is defined. Right? And we will be doing this kind of questions in kinematics, a lot more questions. But since you have talked about this velocity acceleration in your previous classes like 9th and 10th, then it can be thought of that you can connect it with this. The only new thing that you will be facing over here is the differentiation. So two important points that we have talked about. Formula you can think of: differentiation of with respect to any variable. If that variable has a power n, then n comes outside and power becomes n minus 1. And if this is a constant, then you'll find it becomes 0. Constant means t raised to power some 0. So 0 comes front, so it makes everything 0. Based on that, we can calculate this thing. So what will be happening in physics, several quantities will be defined as a rate of change of another quantity. So we need to find that rate of change. For that we say differentiation. I think that's sufficient for this question. You can jot down the solution. We can go ahead now. There is a next problem. Again, it will be using a lot more concepts. So I will be explaining them in short, and you can connect and you can see what the vectors, how the vectors are behaving over here. A body of 2 kg, so that's the mass of the body, which is a scalar number, is moving along northeast direction with a given speed √2 meter per second. So that's the magnitude and this is the direction. So entire thing becomes velocity. A force, which is a vector quantity of this value, is applied on the body, and this is due west, so it's towards west, and this has been applied for 10 seconds. So the time is also given to us, which is a scalar quantity. We need to find the velocity of the body after that. So first of all, we can draw the directions. We know this can be called as the east direction and west direction. And if we draw like this, so that will be talking about the another directions, which is north and south. Generally we have this kind of sense of directions. So if I draw them over here, so we can say this is indicating east, which is generally we draw as a x-axis. This is north, this is west, and this is south. This is how we draw the direction in a two-dimensional plane. Moreover, in this particular question, what we have been given are two vector quantities. One is the velocity, which is facing towards northeast. So velocity is in the northeast direction. So let me draw the velocity in the northeast direction. When somebody says northeast direction, that means it makes 45 degree from the east as well as from the north. So northeast means making equal angles. So that's the initial velocity that has been given to us. So this angle is 45. So we can make the two component of this given velocity, one in the direction of x, because we know the vector can be made the component, two components. So one component will be in this direction, that means x component of velocity, and we can have another component in this direction which we can say towards north. So that will be another component. Making sense? And we know this component is going to be u cos 45, and that's going to be u sin 45. What is the value of u? Value of u has been given to us. U is root 2. So since u is a root 2 and cos 45 is going to be 1 by root 2, so this number after simplification will be equal to 1. So that's going to be 1 meter per second towards east, and this is also going to be equal to 1. So 1 meter per second towards north. This is the initial velocity as per the vector representation. So northeast, if there's a velocity in the northeast direction as a root 2, we can think of 1 meter per second is towards east, 1 meter per second is towards north, because of using the components of a vector. So a vector can be made a component in two perpendicular directions. If this angle is theta, so this becomes u cos theta, this becomes u sin theta. So here we are using components or resolution of a vector. Making sense? Okay, let's move ahead. And the next it says a force is acting due west. So in this, a force has been applied in this direction towards west, and this force is given as a magnitude of 0.2 Newton, and mass is given like this. So we know there is a equation called F equal to ma. Now this equation, if I write in a proper vector notation, so it says F vector is equal to a vector. That means the direction of a for acceleration you must be knowing, m for mass, f for force. It says the direction of acceleration is always in the direction of force. So here the acceleration will be acting in this direction. And how much this a will be having a value? So value or magnitude of a is going to be F magnitude divided by m. Magnitude of F is given as a 0.2 and the value of mass is given as a 2. So you'll find 0.1 meter per second square. This is going to be the acceleration of this on this object or the body. However, we know as per the terminology, this a is opposite to the direction of this initial velocity's east component. So this will not be acceleration, rather it will be deceleration or retardation. Furthermore, now this acceleration or retardation, this a is in the direction of x-axis or along the x-axis you can call. So this will not affect the y component, that means north component. It will be changing only this component. So if we call this as x-axis and if we call this as a y-axis, so x and y component, they remain independent of each other. So what is going to happen? We will be simplifying it as x component. So if we simplify x component of motion, so x component of motion will be like this. Initial velocity in this case is going to be equal to let's call it as a ux. So this is equal to 1 meter per second. However, this acceleration in the x direction, let's call it as ax. X is simply indicating x direction, is going to be written as a minus 0.1 meter per second square. Why I'm writing minus? You can see this is in the direction of negative x. So since it is in the direction of negative x, that's why I'm writing minus, and this u was in the direction of positive x, that's why we are writing a plus. Then we need to find the velocity after time t. T is given as a 10 seconds. So you must be remembering, whenever this a is a constant, then equations of motion like v is equal to u plus at. So velocity in x direction will be equal to initial velocity in x direction plus ax, acceleration in x direction, into t. If we simplify this, this is 1, this is going to be minus 0.1 into t. T is a 10. So you'll find it's going to be 1 minus 1, that is going to be equal to 0. That means the x component of velocity will become 0 meter per second. That means particle will become stop or stationary at that instant in the direction of this east and west, or along the direction of x. Making sense? Now the total velocity, since we need to write the total velocity or final velocity, so how we write a velocity? Velocity is a vector quantity. It will have a x component as well as it will have a y component. Now x component came out to be 0, so that becomes 0 I cap. And y component, now this y component, which was 1 meter per second, in this y direction there was no acceleration, neither any acceleration nor any retardation. So as per the Newton's law, this velocity will not change. So that means it will remain 1 all through. So it's going to be 1 j cap. So our final answer came out to be, the velocity after 10 seconds is going to be 1 j cap meter per second. Now it talks about both magnitude as well as direction. So how much the magnitude is? 1 meter per second, and in which direction it is moving? Plus j cap, and this plus j cap is going to indicate north direction. So our answer will become 1 meter per second towards north or due north. So we will say this is 1 meter per second due north, we are going to mark it. This is towards east, we say no. This is due north, but it is to no. This is also no. So first part becomes our answer. I hope it's making sense. It is a very good question that involves a lot of physics, lot of maths, and if you are able to get idea, that's sufficient. We will be later on talking about in detail what this f equal to ma implies, why we are writing this x component in this manner, then this is the velocity written, and what the velocity is. But what we need to remember or understand in this thing, that if this is a vector, we can make a component, and if this another component, so this is, if this is a plus, so this has to be minus because they are in the opposite direction. And if come out to be j cap, so that j cap means north direction. All these things we need to relate over here because we are learning vectors. Here's the next problem. It says, in a two-dimensional motion of a particle, the particle moves from point A, initial position vector is r1, to point B, whose position vector is r2. If the magnitude of these position vectors are 3 and 4 and angle made by them is θ1 and θ2, find the magnitude of displacement vector. So here we need to recall about the displacement vector, and if you recall the displacement vector, if I'm writing by r, it is the position vector of final AB vector. It will be basically displacement vector if it starts from A goes to B, so it's called AB vector. And if it is AB vector, so we write it as a position vector of B minus position vector of A. You might be remembering this formula from our previous lectures or basic understanding of concept. Now, what is the position vector of B and what is the position vector of A that has been stated over here? So we can say this R vector, which is a displacement vector. Sometimes we can also, basically we use this R vector as a displacement vector. So AB vector I'm writing by R vector. That's a displacement vector. This displacement vector is equal to B position vector is R2 and A position vector is R1. Now if you look carefully here, so here we need to use the vector algebra. Basically you need to use the difference of two vectors. Okay, so difference of two vectors, we need to find the magnitude of difference of two vectors. So we can directly say what the magnitude is going to be. So magnitude of R in case of difference can be directly used, the formula of it. So formula goes to square root of, you remember that formula of difference, it goes like a vector square, first vector's magnitude square plus second vector's magnitude square minus 2 times r1 r2 cos theta, where you, if you remember, this cos theta is the angle between the vectors r1 and r2. This is r1, this is r2, so this is going to be angle theta between the vectors. Now in this particular case we can identify what this theta is going to be, because the total angle is 75, this is 15, so we can say it's going to be 75 minus 15, which we can write it as 60 degree. Making sense or not? If it is making sense, we can come to our answer. So it's going to be equal to R2, which is 4 square of 4, plus R1, which is 3 square of 3, minus 2 times R1, which is 4, or 3 you can write, into R2, which is going to be 4. So I'm writing this in reverse way. It hardly matters in product. And cos 60. And cos 60, we must be knowing what the cos 60 is. We must be knowing all these numbers. We can sum them up. We can find our answer. So it's going to be 16, then 9 minus cos 60 is going to be 1 by 2. That 2 will be get cancelled out, and 4 into 3 will become 12. So if we simplify this, so it becomes 4, and this 9 plus 4 is 13. So our answer will be 13 unit. And we need to check if there's option available. 13, yes, available, that becomes our answer. Making sense? So here we have used the concepts of a vector that we have learned. First, displacement vector, then subtraction of two vectors, their magnitude. Since they were asking about the magnitude, so we directly wrote the magnitude, and that's our answer. Now we can move to our next question. Here is the next problem. It says two constant forces F1 and F2 acts on a body that displaces it from position 1 to position 2. Work done is. Now here some physics concepts are involved. Work done. Later on we will be learning in detail what the work done is. Now work done definition, you can remember F dot R. This is the definition of work done. This definition is used only if or only when this F is a constant. They are saying the forces are constant. Since they are constant forces, resultant is going to be constant. So this F is the net constant force. So this is a net constant force, or total constant force, or resultant of constant force. Net constant force. Net means resultant, that means sum of all the given forces. And this R indicates displacement vector. Displacement vector. So we have talked about displacement vector. So R has to be written as a displacement vector. F has to be written as a net constant force. Then the dot product between these two vectors is the work done, because we know this work done is scalar quantity and these two are the vectors. So we need to multiply these two vectors in such a manner so that scalar quantity comes in. That means dot product has to be performed. So that's the definition of work done. So this we need to remember. Now using this we can find out work done. So here we will be saying the work done is going to involve the net force and net displacement. So we will be finding first of all net force. How to find the net force in vectors? It's written as F1 vector plus F2 vector. So if there are number of forces, any number of forces, you need to sum them up. So vector sum is quite easier. You write this, and then these are the vectors. So you write this vector and this vector put together. So this will become 2i plus I, that becomes 3i. I'm writing them directly. 3i cap. This is minus 3j cap. This is plus j cap. So it becomes minus 2j cap. And finally this 3k cap and minus 2k cap will make it as a k cap. So this Newton is the net force acting on this. Then we need to find the displacement vectors. So displacement vector, we have just solved a question on the displacement vector. Displacement vector, mind it, here we are finding the vector itself, not the magnitude. So displacement vector is R vector. It is written as position vector of final, that means final vector minus position of the initial vector, which is R1. So final position minus initial position is the displacement. Now this is final, this is initial, we need to subtract. So we need to place a minus symbol. So it's going to be 7i cap plus 10j cap plus 5k cap. So that's a final. And then we need to subtract it with the initial one. So initial is or initial has to be subtracted. This is I cap plus 2j cap minus 2k cap. Making sense? Yes. So this R displacement vector can be easily identified. This is going to be 7 minus 1, that's a 6i cap. Then 10 minus 2, that's 8j cap, plus 5, and this becomes plus 2, so 5 plus 2 is a 7, 7k cap. Now we got two vectors. Now here the algebra of vectors that we need to use is a dot product. So as per the definition, what the quantity that we need to find is a work done, and that work done as per the definition is F dot R. So that means we need to perform the dot product, and we have understood how to perform the dot product. You remember this A1 B1 plus A2 B2 plus A3 B3. We can do that directly. So this F dot R, you just go for the dot product to use the rules of it. So I coefficient will get multiplied. That means 3 will be multiplying with 6. Minus 2 will be multiplying with 8. And this 1 will be multiplying with 7. You can write it more directly if you want. So this become 6 into 3, that's 18, minus 8 into 2, that's 16, plus 7. So that leads to, this gives us the final answer. So this leads to 18 minus 16, which is 2, 2 plus 7, which is 9. So it becomes 9. And in unit and dimension, you might have understood that it will come as a force unit and displacement unit. That means Newton meter we can write, and this Newton meter is also written as a joule. So 9 joule will become our answer. We will check our option and find 9 joule, that will become our answer. So making sense? Here we are using the vector. That means we are using the vector addition, then vector subtraction in this, and then the dot product of vectors. So entire vector algebra you can see over here. And if you don't remember know this earlier, now onward you can remember work done is defined as F dot R, where F is a net constant force, R is the displacement vector. Making sense? Now let's move ahead. Here is another example, and that's again good example, and using the vector algebra a lot more. It says a force which is a vector quantity is represented like this. Yes, this acts on a body whose position vector with respect to the axis of rotation is given to us. So we have been given a position vector, and we have been given a force, and we are looking for another quantity called torque. Torque acting on the body is. So these torques and the force and these all things will be defined later. So since they are being used over here, so I can explain the formula, what the formula is, and how the vectors are going to be used here. So torque is defined as, torque is because of a force, so torque uses force and position vector, and torque is written by this symbol tau generally. So this is read as a tau. So force is written as this tau, and it's a vector quantity, and this is defined as R, that's position vector, cross F. Now you can remember this formula, you can note down this formula in your notes, and till we reach to this talk chapter, you can remember it. Position cross F, it's used the cross product. Since this cross product is a vector quantity, hence our answer comes out to a vector. That means torque is a vector quantity. That's why you will find the options will be given in terms of vector. That means I cap, j cap, k cap. So we need to find a vector product of these two quantities, which are force and R. And you will be given, you have been given the force and you have been given R. Basically what we need to do is we need to simply perform the cross product. So R vector is this, force is this. So that means we need to find the torque, which is going to be equal to R cross F. In place of R we can write it's 2j cap plus 5k cap, and this has to be done cross with F, which is I cap minus 4j cap plus 3k cap. In the last video lecture you have understood this cross product, or in the video lecture that was related to the cross product, you have understood this cross product. You can expand it, find it, what the answer is going to be. Or I have also told this another method called determinant method. So let me explain what the answer is going to be using the determinant method. You can do that by your own, but still I am going to explain it once so that you can check your answer or calculation. So what we do in this determinant method, we write I cap, then j cap, then k cap. Then we write the first vector coefficient. So its I coefficient is 0, so we write it as a 0. This is 2, this is 5. And then this second vector's coefficient, which is going to be 1, minus 4, and this 3. let's check the numbers properly, because here the calculation needs to be taken precisely, otherwise there is a lot more scope to get to commit a mistake. So I cap, we are expanding I cap, so this column, this row will not be considered, so this 2 and 3 get to be multiplied, so 2 and 3 will become 6, minus 5 and 4 will need to be multiplied together, so that's going to be 20, so minus of minus 20, then minus j cap. When we are doing this minus j cap, then you'll find this row and this column will not be considered, and 0 and 3 will get multiplied together to make it 0, and 5 and 1 they will be making as a 5. And then we will talk about this last coefficient of k cap. So that's going to be, this row will not be considered, this column will not be considered, 0 and minus 4 will make it 0, and 2 and minus 1 will be making it minus 2. So that will become our final answer. Now what this will be turning off, we can simplify it, so it's a 20 plus 6, that's a 26 I cap, 26 I cap, and this is going to be minus and minus, that's plus, so plus 5 j cap, and this is minus, so minus 2 k cap. We will call this is going to be our answer. If they were in Newton and meters, it becomes Newton into meter, though they are not mentioning the dimensions, we will not be bothering about, and we will be checking the option, which option matches like this. If you go the first option, that's not correct, go for the second option, that's perfectly correct, so second option will become our answer. Making sense? So this is using the cross product of two vectors, and using position vector and force as a vector quantity, and you have learned the definition of torque in this particular question. Now let's see this question. It says the position vector of a particle r vector is given by this expression. Velocity of the particle we need to talk about. So we know the velocity of a particle, if the position vector is given, then it is given as d over dt, that means differentiation or rate of change. D upon dt is called differentiation or rate of change with respect to time, and this has to be applied on r vector, that means on the position vector. This is how it is being defined, and position vector is given to us, so we can put this value d upon dt, and this position vector is given as a cos omega t. Omega t is together inside a cos, so cos omega t is like theta, so cos theta, this is I cap plus a sine omega t, a sine, and this omega t is together, so this is j cap. Now this is a and b are constant, omega is a constant, t is a variable, t is over here. So here you need to know some more rules of differentiation. So if it is written d upon dt of cos omega t, if we need to differentiate this, so it comes out to be minus sine omega t. So this cos gets converted into sine, so it will become minus sine omega t. And since we are writing here t, so whatever the coefficient of t is, that has to be multiplied outside, so that's the rule. And similarly, d upon dt of sine omega t, sine gets converted into cos with a plus sign, so it becomes cos omega t, and whatever the factor with t is associated, that has to be written outside, so we will write this as omega outside. So these are the rules of differentiation that we are going to use over here. So for the time being, you can jot down and use them, and later on we will be learning how they are coming. Now this is the definition as per the physics, and these are the rules that we are going to apply, mathematical rule. Then we will be talking about what the correct option is going to be. So let's proceed this with this differentiation. So this v will become to equal to d upon dt. We know this can be distributed as we have seen in the previous examples, so a can be taken outside, and if we take a outside, so this has to be applied on cos omega t. This cos omega t goes as a 1 unit, and this is on I cap. I cap is a constant, so it can be taken outside. Similarly, this a will be outside, and d upon dt will be applied on this sine omega t, and this j cap will be outside. So this is how the velocity will be written. Now let me write it further, what it is going to be converted into. Cos omega t, this formula we can apply. So if we apply this formula, so it will become minus a omega sine omega t I cap. So that's done for first part, and we can apply this formula for the second part. So it will become plus a omega cos omega t j cap. So that becomes the velocity. If we write it, if we want it, we can write it more properly. So we can write it as a omega as a constant outside, and inside a bracket we are going to get as a minus sine omega t I cap plus cos omega t j cap. That's a good equation. In fact, it has come in several examination in previous years. So we need to understand what it is, what it takes to solve. Anyway, so position vector, we know the position vector. This is a position vector. If we write this position vector that we have used, this position vector r vector is, we can take this a outside, and in the bracket we will be writing it as a cos omega t I cap, cos omega t I cap plus sine omega t j cap. So this is position vector, and this is the velocity vector. If acceleration vector is to be found out, we can further differentiate it. Anyway, we need to find the velocity vector. So velocity vector has come to us. Now we need to answer it. It says this velocity vector is parallel to the position vector. That means we need to check whether these two are parallel. Now if you remember, to check the parallel vectors, we can do the cross product and check whether this cross product is coming to be 0. So if the r cross v comes out to be 0, then we will claim these two vectors are parallel to each other. Perpendicular to the position, to check the perpendicular of two vectors, we do the dot product, and if the dot product becomes 0, then the vectors are perpendicular. If the cross product becomes 0, then the vectors are parallel. And then directed towards origin and directed away from the origin. Now this is r vector, so this vector, this cannot be written in terms of r. So that means this is not directed towards the origin or away the origin. What that mean is, if this vector v vector, if we write this v vector is some constant times r vector, that means we can say the direction of v is along the direction of r. R starts from origin because it's a position vector, so all position vectors starts from origin. So if this is the case, then we can say v and r, they are in the same direction. That means velocity is in the direction of r. That means it is either towards the origin or away from the origin. If k is a positive, then away from the origin. If k is a negative, then towards the origin. Making sense? But we will find that this kind of relation is not true. Hence, third and fourth part is not true. Now, cross product is a bit difficult, as you know. So first we will check for the dot product. So let's do r dot v. If we do r dot v dot product, so you will find these numbers will be multiplying together. So it will become a square omega outside. And inside we know the I coefficient get multiplied together and j together. So this will become minus sine omega t into cos omega t. So that will be the a1 b1. And similarly a2 b2 will be equal to plus cos omega t into sine omega t, which can also be written as sine omega t into cos omega t. If you see it carefully, then you'll find the bracketed stuff is equal and opposite. That means it is 0. Then that means it delivers that r dot v came out to be 0. Since r dot v came out to be 0, we can claim from here, that is, if the dot product of two non-zero vectors is 0, that means the two vectors are perpendicular to each other. That means velocity vector is perpendicular to position vector, and that's how we can find our answer. So velocity vector is perpendicular to position vector. Making sense? So here differentiation rules have been used, so you can add this in your notes. This is the rule. In the upcoming videos you will be learning these rules. And here we have used vector laws and some physics like v is equal to dr by dt, and then checked our answer. Here is another question. It says a particle is moving in xy plane under the influence of force F, such that the components of linear momentum is given like this: px, py. P is called linear momentum. Linear momentum is a vector quantity, and we need to find the angle between these two vectors. So here the angle between two vectors is required. Now first of all, physics concept, linear momentum and force, they are related like this. As per the Newton's second law, this force is defined as rate of change of linear momentum. That means dp upon dt. again differentiation is involved with respect to time. So this is the formula. That means definition of force is rate of change of linear momentum with respect to time. So this you can note it down, and we are going to use this. Now what the p vector is, we know that any vector is written as the x component I cap and y component j cap. So it will be written as px I cap plus py j cap. Now what the px value is, it's a 2 cos t I cap plus 2 sin t j cap. So basically p vector is known to us. So this linear momentum vector is, we can take this 2 outside, so this is basically cos t I cap plus sin t j cap. Now we need to find the angle between force and this linear momentum, so we need to know another vector called force. Once the two vectors are known to us, we can find the angle between the two vectors. How to get the angle between two vectors? Cos theta is written as a dot b divided by ab. So here we will write the f dot p divided by magnitude of f and magnitude of p. So point is, first of all we need to perform the dot product of these two vectors, and then we will talk about what the angle is going to be using this relation. Making sense? Now from here, if we trying to find what is the magnitude of p, you can calculate that magnitude. It's going to be 2, or you say like 2 cos t whole square plus 2 sin t whole square within the under root. So you'll find this 2 square, that's 4, will be taken outside, and cos square t plus sin square t. So for all t's, this cos square t plus sin square t will become 1. So this will become 2. So magnitude of p is 2, which we need to write downside. Now to find the f value, I have written the formula or given the formula earlier. This is f dp by dt. That means we need to differentiate it with respect to time. And differentiation of this will be exactly similar that we have just talked about in the previous example. This is cos t I cap and this is sin t j cap. So if we go for the differentiation, 2 will be outside and this differentiation will go inside. It will differentiate cos. Whenever we differentiate cos, it comes out to be minus sin. So minus sin t. Here coefficient of t is 1, so 1 will be multiplied outside, so it's okay. And similarly when it goes on sin, so it converts this sin into cos, so this becomes cos t j cap. So this will become the force. And if we are interested in finding out the magnitude of force, then you'll find the magnitude of force is again going to be 2, because under root sin square t plus cos square t will become 1. So now we got this dot product, this two vectors and their magnitudes. So let's first find this dot product f dot p. Or let's write the cos theta directly. So cos theta, the theta angle between these two vectors is going to be equal to f dot p divided by magnitude of f magnitude of p. Then dot product, for dot product we will be multiplying this p vectors with this f vector, whatever we are having over here. So if we multiply, then you'll find it's going to be equal to 2 and 2 will become 4, and inside I coefficients will get multiplied, so it become minus sin t cos t into cos t, and j coefficient, if they multiply, it will become cos t and sin t. And downside you have already calculated, magnitude of f came out to be 2, magnitude of p also came out to be 2. But you see in the numerator it becomes 0, so cos theta becomes 0. Whenever the cos theta becomes 0, theta has to be 90 degree. So we will find the angle between these two vectors is going to be 90 degree. So that's our answer. This question has also appeared in examination multiple times. So point is, this is an important point that we need to keep in mind, this relation, and which we will be learning later on. And what we have used is this, how to find the angle between two vectors. Cos theta is equal to a dot b upon ab, and then some dot this differentiation concept, and we are coming to our final answer. Here is the last question of this video. It says a proton is moving with a velocity this meter per second in the y direction. So let's make, in this direction the velocity is a vector quantity which is in this direction of y. It is acted upon by an electric field. Electric field is a vector quantity, you will be learning later on, and its magnitude is 10⁵ volt per meter, and that is pointed along the direction of x. So this, in this direction of x, electric field is applied. This electric field is written by E. It's a vector quantity. And a magnetic field is also a vector quantity, and it is being applied in the direction of Z. So in the direction of Z, magnetic field is applied. So B is indicating the magnetic field. Magnitude is given as 1 WB. WB is for Weber per meter square. This is Weber per meter square. So we need to find Lorentz force. So what is a Lorentz force? I will give you a formula. You can solve that, you can get your answer. So Lorentz force is given as, whenever this type of situation is, Lorentz force act when there is electric field and magnetic field. The proton has a charge. So charge is written by Q. So it is written as electrostatic force. Electrostatic force is Q into E. So whenever the charge is in an electric field, it experiences a force called Q into E. That means it is in the direction of E if the charge is positive. Plus, magnetic field also applies a force which is Q into V cross B. So this is a complicated force called Lorentz force. So here what we need to do, we need to use the vectors. So this is one vector which is Q into E. E is given as a direction X, so it's I cap. And Q is given to us, V is given to us, B is given to us. We need to find V cross B doing the cross product. Then we need to add these two vectors to get the final answer. Making sense? Now let me give you quickly what are the quantities that are given to us. These quantities are given to us. Here the Q is a charge. So Q called charge. The charge Q is given to us. It is written as proton's charge is E, which is 1.6 into 10 raised to power minus 19 coulomb. So this is the charge on a proton and it's positive. So this Q value is given to us. V as a vector is given to us. Velocity, V for velocity. Velocity is given to us 5 into 10 raised to power 5 meter per second. It's a large velocity in the direction of Y, which is J cap. So these many meter per second. Now here C for coulomb. Coulomb is the unit of charge. You might be knowing. And electric field is given to us E. E is given to us as 10 raised to power 5. This is volt per meter. But it is in the direction of X, so we can write it as I cap in terms of volt per meter. And finally, we have been given the magnetic field. So what the magnetic field is? Magnetic field is given to us as 1 Weber per meter square. That means in proper SI unit. So it's a 1, but it is in the Z direction. So 1 K cap in terms of Weber per meter square. Now you see, like, all the vectors are known to us. This value is known to us. So we need to put the value of Q and the value of E to find this electrostatic force. That means force because of electric field, and this force because of magnetic field. And then we need to perform the addition of the two vectors to get the final vectors, and whichever the direction it goes, so direction we need to find, and magnitude we need to find. Making sense? So this you need to solve by your own, and here you need to use the cross product as well as the addition of vector, solve it and find the answer. Comment the answer in the comment box. Well, so in this video we have talked about a lot more questions which are very important, and some of the new points you have catched. Jot down those points and try to focus how we are using the vectors, and you will be feeling how important the vector algebra is in order to answer these kind of questions. Okay, so that's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Have a great time.